begin my story with some background. It's a story from my early childhood. My parents instilled a love for God in me. In our family, sin was not tolerated, and if it happened, we diligently prayed for forgiveness. Sin did happen, though. The punishment was to lock oneself in a box for 3 days and pray the entire time. There wasn't enough air, with only small slits in the box, so once, I almost died while inside. Because of this, my parents, unfortunately, lost their parental rights. For the rest of my life, I tried to live without committing sins. God was always first in my heart, as my parents had raised me. When I graduated from the orphanage, I faced the question of what profession I should choose to help God cleanse our world of sinners. After some time, I decided that becoming a psychologist would be the best option. During therapy sessions, people would tell me about their wrongdoings. When I realized that their sins were too great, I had to intervene. I developed my own method, Coffin therapy. In my backyard, I would bury these sinners with a Bible to save their souls. When they woke up and screamed, I understood that their inner demons were leaving them. Their cries were inhuman, clearly signaling the departure of genuine evil. This process was necessary for the wicked essence to go straight to hell, while any goodness left in their souls would ascend to God's kingdom. One day, a certain Vladimir came to me for psychotherapy. He turned out to be pure evil incarnate. Shyly, he spoke about how he killed people as well as his obsessive love. I had to act despite the mortal danger he posed. But God was with me, so I managed to give this devil incarnate a sedative and bury him to cleanse his soul. However, something unimaginable happened. Vladimir turned out to be too resourceful and managed to escape from the grave while I was praying with all my soul. After escaping the grave, he sneaked into my house, approached my box, thanked me for something, and then nailed the lid shut so I couldn't get out. In that terrifying moment, trapped inside, I prayed to God for help. When he left, I managed, with great difficulty, to kick the boards out. There is no doubt, it was God who helped me. When I regained my composure, I began to wonder, why did God help him escape too? Or was it something very evil, something I had never encountered before, that aided him? Or am I wrong? Is it possible that God wants both of us to live? I needed to find out. When I regained my composure, I decided to find Vladimir no matter what it took and get answers to my questions. Finding him was very difficult, but I knew that God would help me. I didn't give up until the very end, and after several years, I finally managed to track him down in a small town. I thanked God and my faith, which had never let me down. When I saw Vladimir, I noticed that he had slightly changed his style. He now had a beard and was neatly groomed, dressed just as he had been during our last session in my office, in a classic suit. Following him was not easy. I had to change my appearance, wear a black wig, and sometimes a scarf to alter my look. I also bought a large collection of glasses with various frames. Even though it was almost impossible to recognize me, I was scared to be noticed. But I knew God wouldn't allow it, and I was extremely cautious, knowing who I was dealing with. I would come to the place where he lived early in the morning and wait. Sometimes I caught sight of him. Sometimes I lost him. During my surveillance, I noticed he was following a young man with many tattoos. Tattoos are a grave sin, disrespect for the body. The longer we followed the man, the more repulsive I found him. I was certain his soul needed cleansing. He was dating multiple girls at once, all of whom were in love with him, and he treated them deceitfully. As I watched Vladimir play with this man, leaving him anonymous messages, I particularly enjoyed observing how the man became increasingly paranoid, glancing around in fear. Sadly, I couldn't follow them every day. I couldn't quite understand what criteria Vladimir used to choose his targets, but I began to wonder, could he also be a warrior of God, trying to make the world better, just with different methods? But after recalling our therapy session, where he talked about his killings and how he sent his love to eternal rest, I was certain this wasn't the case. Who then was he? Could he be a demon destroying his own kind? This seemed plausible. Perhaps that's why God had saved him. If that were true, I shouldn't interfere, but I had to verify it. During another surveillance, as I was lost in my thoughts, someone abruptly grabbed me by the shoulder. Ahead, Vladimir had disappeared from sight. I was too afraid to turn around, but glancing at my shoulder, I saw it was a woman's hand. Turning quickly, I saw two women standing in front of me. One of them, a blonde, stood a bit further back, while the other, a brunette with a harsher expression, was the one who had grabbed me. "Are you following that monster too?" asked the brunette. The nickname suited him perfectly. I replied that I was. I thought that God had sent me help to resolve my doubts. "What did he do to you?" asked the blonde. I didn't want to tell them the full truth, but lying is a sin. So, I decided to share only part of the story, that he locked me in a box where I could have suffocated. "And what did he do to you?" I asked them. "He killed my family," said the brunette. "We took him into our home, and he killed my parents. First, he used his invention to kill my father and then my mother. On top of that, he framed me, making it seem like I was guilty. They wanted to give me a life sentence, but a miracle happened, and my sentence was greatly reduced due to some circumstances. I wasn't wrong when I buried that monster. His escape was the work of the devil, I thought. And he tricked me," said the blonde. "Because of him, I killed an innocent old woman and sent my father to prison. And in the end, I ended up behind bars myself." The brunette spoke again. "Do you also want him dead?" Looking into the eyes of these women, I started to see them as demons. Their eyes revealed their thirst for blood. I didn't want this man to die. I just wanted to save his soul and send the demon residing within him straight to hell. But I knew it was too dangerous to tell them that. So I answered in a way that wasn't a lie. "The demon must die. In the name of the Lord God," I said. The brunette smirked. "Are you joking? Or are you serious?" she asked. I looked at her questioningly. "What's so funny? Hello, we're in the 21st century. There is no God." This phrase infuriated me. I wanted to grab a brick and crush this vile creature's head. My hands even began to tremble from such sinful thoughts, and I knew I'd have to pray for forgiveness. "Don't take it so seriously," said the blonde. "We'll stop him for sure." "Yeah, join us," added the brunette. "We'll make him suffer." At that moment, I started to understand God's plan and decided to join them. Evening had already fallen, so we agreed to continue our surveillance the next day at 10 a.m. I asked how we would track him, as I usually waited for him outside his house early in the morning. By 10 a.m., he might have already left. The brunette smiled and said they could track his location using geolocation. "What's that?" I asked. "We can see where his phone is," replied the blonde. "God hadn't sent them to me for nothing. I would do everything right." After saying goodbye, we all went home. At home, I read several prayers, ate, and went to bed. The brunette's words kept echoing in my head. How dare she say there is no God? Never mind. After her wretched life, she'll end up in hell. Only after this thought was I able to calm down and fall asleep. In the morning, we met and continued our surveillance. That day, Vladimir was following a new target, a woman in her 60s. Strangely, he met with her, and they talked about something in a cafe before going their separate ways. We decided to follow her to figure out why Vladimir had chosen her. She sat down on a bench in a park, and I sat on a nearby bench. The woman began making a phone call, and I eavesdropped. "Hi, Natasha. I conned another fool," she said. I kept listening, and what I heard shocked me. She was a scammer posing as a fortune teller, swindling people out of large sums of money. She laughed as she recounted how she had just met with a wealthy man, exploited his issues with his wife, who loved him, and convinced him that she could fix everything. The old woman laughed and told her friend how she had scared the man by claiming he was cursed, and that she could remove the curse for a hefty fee. From their conversation, I realized they would meet again in a couple of days. This vile woman infuriated me. Deceiving people was a grave sin, and she dared to pose as a fortune teller? Her demonic soul clearly needed cleansing. Vladimir's intentions became clear to me. I approached the girls and told them everything. They didn't seem particularly moved. "Girls, her actions are a serious sin. She deserves what Vladimir has in mind for her." "That's nonsense. The real evil here is Vladimir," the blonde said. "What sin? The old lady is just trying to make a living. Without fools, life would be boring. She's not killing anyone. But Vladimir? Now he's targeting poor old ladies, added the brunette. Their attitude was infuriating. I became furious. They were clueless about what they were saying. The old woman was true evil, a disgusting fraudster. I would have gladly used my coffin therapy method on her. The day came when we were supposed to capture Vladimir. Everything was ready. The blonde tracked his location and agreed to call when he was in an ideal spot. I thought about it long and hard, and when she called, I told her to postpone it, citing feeling unwell. As it turned out, she wasn't feeling great either. Maybe God is sending us signs that we're on the wrong path, I thought. We decided to keep observing him the next day, but only the brunette showed up for surveillance. She gave me a smug smile and said that the other girl had come up with a plan to prepare a place where we would torment this animal. She had gone to organize it. The surveillance took place in the forest near the park. While we waited, the brunette and I talked a bit, though I would have preferred silence. "Why do you wear that cross?" she asked. "You know there is no God. The main proof of that is that monsters like him exist. If God were real, we wouldn't have to deal with them ourselves. So just throw it away and live a free, happy life. Life is short, and we only have one." Hearing this filled me with rage. I knew exactly what this vile woman wanted, to sow doubt in my heart and corrupt my soul. But no, I wouldn't allow it. I understood that her wickedness needed to be dealt with immediately. Seeing a large stick nearby, I grabbed it and struck her on the head. Fortunately, no one was around. She fell unconscious. I quickly ran to a nearby grocery store, bought a bottle of vodka, and returned. Lifting the brunette, I carried her to the road, flagged down a taxi, and made sure the driver saw her and the vodka in my hand. The driver must have assumed she was just drunk. We arrived at the private house I was renting. I was shaking with anticipation, eager to send this sinner straight to hell. How dare she insult the cross and God? No one had ever done such a thing to me before. I was beside myself. When she regained consciousness, I had already dug a hole in the ground. She started squirming like a snake. Seeing her in this state irritated me less. Knowing that such a soul could not be saved, I decided to bury her. Usually, I would place a Bible and a flashlight in the coffin for the soul's cleansing. But for her, there was no point in prayer. Let her soul descend to hell as quickly as possible. I pushed her into the hole. She started thrashing even more wildly, like a snake on a hot skillet. The sight was already tiresome, so I began covering her with dirt. Having finished, I let out a deep sigh. Now, I needed to deal with her friend, the blonde. Time was running out, so I decided to break the phone of the snake I had just buried. Afterward, I called the blonde in a distressed voice and told her that Vladimir had spotted her friend and kidnapped her. "When will this bastard die? We must save her," she exclaimed. "I agree," I replied. "Did he see you?" she asked. "No," I assured her. "Good. We need to meet," she said. I told her I had found a place where Vladimir allegedly dealt with his victims and gave her a location deep in the woods. She agreed to meet me there soon. Now I had to get to that place before her. It was good that I had prepared the grave in advance to save a soul. Deep in the forest thicket. Initially, it was meant for Vladimir. While I was on my way, I prayed to God for forgiveness for lying. But it was all in your name, Lord. My body demanded a purification ritual, but I couldn't perform it yet. I had to deal with the evil first. When I arrived, she wasn't there yet, but it was already nighttime outside. It was good that no one had discovered my grave in the meantime. I had wisely covered it with long branches and moss. I had almost no strength left and just wanted to finish this sinister plan as soon as possible. Suddenly, I heard a woman's voice. "Are you here?" I replied, "Yes, I'm here." Then I heard footsteps coming toward me. I stood behind the pit, ready for her to fall straight into it as soon as she got close, most likely breaking something in the process, and then I would handle the rest. When she approached, a flashlight beam was aimed at my face, blinding me. "Lower the flashlight," I said, but nothing happened. "First, tell me the truth. Where is my friend?" I already told you. Vladimir noticed her and took her. You're lying. Then she lowered the flashlight, and I saw that the girl was holding a gun. I'm not lying. They're nearby. I even saw him leave. She's alone there now? Yes. Stop lying to me. Where's my friend? She's nearby, I told you. I tracked her location and yours. You were together the whole time. Vladimir never approached you. This is your last chance. Tell me the truth. I didn't know what to do, so I decided to kneel and pray. Last time, God saved me, and I was certain he would hear me again. I just needed to trust him. Get up now or I'll shoot, she threatened. I tried to ignore her threats and continued praying to God. Then a gunshot rang out, but the bullet missed me. I didn't look at what was happening, focusing entirely on my prayers. I then heard determined footsteps heading toward me, followed by another shot and a scream. In that moment, I felt immense pain. Opening my eyes, I saw my stomach bleeding profusely. I glanced into the pit and saw that the white-haired witch lay unconscious, seemingly having hit her head on the coffin. Once again, God has helped me, I thought. I had to act while God was giving me a chance. Taking the coffin lid and a shovel, I began burying the pit with my remaining strength. Digging was incredibly difficult. I was dizzy, and blood was flowing rapidly. But I knew God was with me, and I would succeed. This was a test of faith. Then I heard her cries. At last, the demon decided to leave this soul. The demon began banging on the coffin lid, trying to escape, but it lacked the strength. I resolved not to let God down and hurried my digging. Everything around me was spinning, but prayer helped me stay conscious. When the demon quieted down, I slowed my pace. Let's make a deal. Let me out, she screamed. I chose not to respond and loudly, deliberately spit into the pit so the demon could hear it. Stop, she cried. To me, her screams were nothing more than music. A believer finds joy in the cries of a demon. After a minute, the demon fell silent, and I slowed my pace again. I was running out of air, but I kept going. Suddenly, numerous gunshots rang out, and I felt intense pain in my leg. She had started shooting chaotically at the coffin lid, trying to take me with her. When she ran out of bullets, she began wailing, regretting that she hadn't shot herself instead. I was relieved that the demon couldn't take her soul. I felt that she still had a chance for salvation. Turning on my flashlight, I looked at my leg and was horrified. The pain grew with each passing second, and it was hard to stay conscious. I resumed praying to God and, after finishing, began crawling away from the site. Along the way, I lost consciousness several times. When I finally crawled out of the forest, I called an ambulance and reported that I had been attacked. Then everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital bed, in excruciating pain. Looking at myself, I saw several tubes sticking out of my stomach. Then I blacked out again. In my dream, I realized that we had so desperately wanted to take revenge on Vladimir, but in the end, we killed each other behind his back, and he didn't even know about it. I don't know if I'll be able to function any longer. Perhaps my mission is over, and God will take me to heaven. But it warms my heart to think that there are still warriors out there eradicating sins.